Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast.
Yeah.
You ever get that feeling like when you're all bundled up in a coat and you just start daydreaming about summer picnics?
Or maybe you're sweating through a heat wave wishing for like those crisp autumn leaves.
Yeah, exactly. Well, today,
Yeah?
we are diving deep into something that we all experience, but we don't always fully understand.
Right.
Seasons.
It is incredible how this cycle that is so fundamental to life on Earth is all thanks to our planet's, cosmic choreography,
Yeah.
this delicate dance between Earth and the sun.
We've got a whole stack of fascinating research here ready to uncover the science behind why seasons exist,
Yeah,
how different cultures perceive them, and even how they might be changing.
absolutely.
You ready to unravel the mysteries of seasons?
Oh, I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay, awesome. Let's start by unpacking the science behind this whole phenomenon.
Okay.
So it's not just about how close the Earth is to the sun.
Right.
In fact, we're closest to the sun in January,
Yes.
right in the middle of winter for the Northern Hemisphere. The real key here is the Earth's tilt.
The tilt.
So it's like Earth is a spinning top that's slightly off kilter.
Uh-huh.
How does that tilt create the seasons?
Okay, so imagine Earth is spinning on its axis, right?
Oh.
That's that imaginary line that runs through the North and South poles.
Got it.
Now picture this axis tilted at about 23.4 degrees.
Okay.
It's this tilt
Yep.
combined with the Earth's journey around the sun that creates the seasons.
Hmm.
As the Earth orbits the sun, the angle at which the sunlight hits different parts of the planet
Yeah.
changes throughout the year.
So it's not about distance. It's about the angle of the sun's rays.
You got it.
Okay.
Precisely. So when a hemisphere is tilted towards the sun, it receives more direct sunlight,
Okay.
leading to warmer temperatures and longer days.
Summertime.
Summertime. Meanwhile, the hemisphere tilted away gets less direct sunlight, resulting in cooler temperatures and shorter days.
Winter.
Eh,
So picture this. It's summer in the Northern Hemisphere, and you're basking in the warmth of the sun. Meanwhile, folks down in the Southern Hemisphere are all bundled up,
Yeah.
experiencing winter,
Yeah.
all thanks to that 23.4-degree tilt.
Exactly. And here's another fascinating detail.
Okay.
The Earth's axis always points in the same direction throughout its orbit,
Okay.
towards Polaris, also known as the North Star.
Uh-huh.
So as the Earth circles the sun, different parts of the planet take turns tilting towards and away from the sun's rays,
Okay.
creating this beautiful cycle of seasons.
So Earth is doing this cosmic ballet, tilting and twirling,
Yeah.
creating the rhythm of life as we know it.
I love that cosmic ballet. I'm going to use that.
I know, right?
Wow.
It's mind-boggling when you think about it. But here's a question that popped into my mind
Okay.
as I was prepping for this deep dive.
Uh-huh.
Are there really only 4 seasons? I mean, spring, summer, autumn, winter, that's what we're all taught, right?
Yay.
But our sources suggest it's not that simple.
It is not that simple.
So-
You've hit on a fascinating point. The 4-season model is widely recognized, especially in those parts of the world that experience, those distinct shifts in temperature
Yeah.
throughout the year.
Okay.
But other cultures,
Hmm.
and even different fields of study,
Yeah.
define seasons in unique ways.
So while I might be sipping iced tea and dreaming of beach days, somebody on the other side of the world
Totally.
might be experiencing a completely different season.
Absolutely. Take, for instance, the Hindu calendar in India.
Okay.
They use a 6-season model, dividing the year into 2-month periods,
Wow.
each with its own distinct characteristics
Okay.
and cultural significance.
Mm-hmm.
These seasons are intricately tied to the region's weather patterns and agricultural practices.
So wait, they have 2 extra seasons.
Do you do?
I'm already intrigued. What are they called?
No.
What makes them unique?
So let's take Vasanta, for example.
Okay.
It falls roughly between mid-March and mid-May
Uh-huh.
and is considered the spring season. Imagine gentle breezes, blossoming flowers, a sense of renewal in nature. It's a time of celebration and new beginnings.
Okay.
Then there's Grishma, spanning mid-May to mid-July.
Mm-hmm.
This marks the onset of summer in India,
Okay.
a time of hotter temperatures and often drier conditions.
Okay. That makes sense. It's getting hot. Things are drying out.
Yes.
What's next?
Next comes Varsha, falling between mid-July and mid-September.
Okay.
This is the monsoon season, a period of heavy rainfall crucial for agriculture in India.
Hmm.
It's a time of dramatic shifts in the landscape,
Yeah.
with rivers swelling and the land coming alive with lush vegetation.
Wow. So they have a season specifically dedicated to the monsoon.
They do.
That makes perfect sense when you consider how vital those rains are to their way of life.
Right.
It's amazing how different cultures have adapted their understanding of seasons to reflect their local environment.
It is fascinating, isn't
It
it?
shows how deeply intertwined we are with the rhythms of nature. But you mentioned different fields of study have their own takes on seasons, too.
Yes,
What about that?
absolutely. Let's consider how meteorologists approach this.
Okay.
They define seasons based on temperature patterns, other
Ugh.
than fixed dates on a calendar.
Okay.
They divide the year into 4 3-month periods, with winter being the coldest,
Mm-hmm.
summer the warmest,
Okay.
and spring and autumn falling in between.
So while I might be bundled up in January longing for spring, a meteorologist might already be talking about spring's arrival based on those temperature trends.
Exactly.
It really is all about perspective.
It is all about perspective.
And speaking of nature's nuances,
Yeah.
our sources also highlighted something called ecological seasons,
Oh,
which
yes.
sounds especially fascinating because they're determined by changes in plant and animal activity.
Yeah.
It's like nature has its own calendar, right?
You could say that. Ecological seasons are all about observing the subtle shifts in the natural world around us. For
Oh.
example, the timing of bird migrations, the blooming of certain flowers, or the emergence of insects,
Uh-huh.
all signal seasonal changes in a particular ecosystem.
Okay.
These cues are incredibly localized, meaning what defines a season in one place
Yeah.
might be completely different just a few miles away.
So even within a single city, you might have microclimates
Exactly.
where ecological seasons are slightly out of sync.
You got it.
That's incredible. It really highlights how complex and adaptable nature is.
It really is.
Are there any specific examples that come to mind?
Think about the timing of crocus blooms,
Okay.
those vibrant purple flowers that herald the arrival of spring.
Yeah.
You might notice that crocuses bloom earlier in areas closer to the coast,
Oh.
where the temperatures are slightly warmer
Uh-huh.
compared to areas further inland.
Hmm.
It's a subtle but fascinating example of how ecological seasons can vary even within a relatively small geographic area.
That's amazing. I'll definitely be paying closer attention to those subtle cues in my own neighborhood now.
Yeah.
It's like nature's having this secret conversation all around us, and we just need to learn how to listen.
Absolutely.
Loving this journey through time in nature.
Yes.
Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more fascinating stories from Tell Me More.
Do it.
Now, our sources mentioned a 6-season model used to describe these ecological changes.
Okay.
Can you walk us through those 6 seasons and what makes each one special?
Of course. Think of it as a more nuanced way of understanding how nature responds to these cycles.
Okay.
We start with prevernal,
Okay.
which is early or pre-spring,
Hmm.
a time of subtle but significant changes.
Yeah.
You might see deciduous tree buds starting to swell,
Uh-huh.
and some early bird migrants begin their journeys back to their summer breeding grounds.
Okay.
Then comes vernal true spring,
Mm.
where things truly burst into life.
Yeah.
Tree buds open into leaves, birds establish territories and start nesting,
Okay.
and the natural world is buzzing with energy and activity.
It's like witnessing a rebirth after the quiet of winter.
Yeah.
What happens as we move towards summer?
Next comes estival,
Okay.
which represents high summer.
Okay.
Think of it as a time of abundance and growth.
Yeah.
Trees are in full leaf, birds are busy raising their young,
Yeah.
and the days are long and warm.
It's the time for picnic, swimming, and enjoying those long daylight hours.
Exactly.
What happens as summer starts to wind down?
Then we transition into serotinal, or late summer.
Okay.
Things begin to wind down.
Hmm.
You might notice deciduous leaves starting to change color,
Yeah.
hinting at the coming autumn.
Okay.
Young birds are reaching maturity and preparing for their own migrations.
Uh-huh.
And many cultures begin their harvest season
Mm.
during this time.
It's that bittersweet time when you can sense summer's end, but also appreciate the beauty of the changing colors and the bounty of the harvest.
Yeah.
What comes after that?
Then we move into autumnal,
Oh,
the true autumn season.
Okay.
This is when those beautiful leaf colors reach their peak, eventually turning brown and falling to the ground.
Uh-huh.
Bird migration is in full swing, and nature prepares for its winter slumber.
There's a certain melancholy beauty to autumn with the falling leaves and the shorter days. But it's also a time for reflection
Yes,
and appreciating the cycle of nature.
absolutely.
And finally, we reach hibernal,
Winter.
winter.
This is a time of dormancy and rest.
Hmm.
Deciduous trees stand bare fallen leaves, decompose and migrating birds have settled into their wintering grounds.
Okay.
Nature takes a pause,
Yeah.
conserving energy for the coming spring.
It's like hitting the reset button,
Yes,
a time for nature to recharge.
exactly.
But here's something I find fascinating.
Okay,
These ecological seasons aren't bound by rigid dates on a calendar.
you're right, they're not.
They're driven by local conditions
Yes.
and can vary significantly from year to year and from one location to another.
Precisely.
So even within a single city,
Yeah.
you might have microclimates
Yes.
where ecological seasons are slightly out of sync. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It really highlights how complex and adaptable nature is.
It's a reminder that nature doesn't always follow our human-made calendars precisely.
Right.
It has its own rhythm influenced by a myriad of factors.
Okay, I have to ask.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed any of these ecological season shifts in your own life?
Oh, yeah.
Something that didn't quite match up with what the calendar was saying.
Absolutely. I've definitely noticed variations in when certain flowers bloom in my garden,
Okay.
sometimes weeks earlier or later than what's considered typical.
Yeah.
I've also observed how the timing of bird migrations can shift slightly from year to year, likely in response to changes in weather patterns or food availability.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to see how these ecological seasons are constantly responding to the environment.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So cool.
It is. It's like nature is constantly improvising, adapting its seasonal cues to the ever-changing conditions. But as much as we rely on our, modern calendars and scientific observations, indigenous cultures have a much deeper connection to these natural rhythms, don't they?
Yeah, it's like they've been reading the book of nature for centuries.
Exactly.
Noticing those subtle cues that we might miss in our busy modern lives.
Right.
Our sources mention that indigenous cultures often have unique ways of defining seasons based on their observations of nature and their specific needs. Can you give us some examples of how their perspectives might differ from our conventional views?
Absolutely. Take, for example, some indigenous Australian tribes who recognize up to 8 seasons,
Wow.
each marked by distinct changes in the environment.
Okay.
Instead of relying solely on temperature shifts,
Yeah.
they might base their seasons on subtle shifts in wind patterns,
Yeah.
the appearance of specific insects, the breeding cycles of animals, or the flowering and fruiting of particular plants.
8 seasons. That's incredible. Can you delve into the specifics of one of those systems?
Sure.
I'd love to hear more about how those seasons are defined and what they signify.
Let's look at the Noongar people of Western Australia.
Oh.
They have a 6-season calendar that's deeply intertwined with their cultural beliefs and practices. Each season is determined by a combination of environmental cues and has a corresponding cultural significance.
Okay.
It's a beautiful example of how humans can live in harmony with the natural world, their lives dictated by its rhythms.
I'm all ears. Tell me about the Noongar seasons.
Okay, so their first season, Burak, typically falls between December and January. It's a time of warm days, gentle breezes, and the first signs of new life emerging.
Yeah.
For the Noongar people, it's a time associated with childhood and new beginnings.
It sounds like a time of joy and renewal, a fresh start after the previous year.
Right.
What about the next season?
Next comes Bunuru, occurring roughly between February and March. It's the hottest part of the year, a time when the land dries out and fires are common.
Yeah.
This season is linked to adolescence in Noongar culture, representing the challenges and growth that come with transitioning into adulthood.
It's interesting how they connect those seasonal characteristics to stages of human development.
Yeah.
What happens as the heat of the Nuru subsides?
Then comes Jaran, the autumn season, typically falling between April and May. The weather cools down and the first rains bring relief from the summer heat.
Yeah.
This season is seen as a time of adulthood in Noongar culture, a time for gathering food hunting and preparing for the coming colder months.
It's a time for harvesting the fruits of your labor, both literally and metaphorically.
Right.
And as the rains continue, what comes next?
Makura arrives spanning June and July.
Okay.
This is the season of the first rains, bringing life back to the land after the dry summer.
Yeah.
For the Noongar people, Makuru is considered the fertility season, a time when animals are breeding and plants are flourishing.
It's like the earth is being reborn after the dry spell.
Yeah.
What follows this time of fertility?
Jilba, the season of the second rains, arrives between August and September.
Okay.
The land becomes lush and green, and wildflowers bloom in abundance.
Wow.
This is the season of conception in Noongar culture, a time of new life and abundance.
It's a time of vibrant beauty and anticipation for the future.
Yes.
And finally, we reach the last season.
Yes. Kamarang graces the landscape between October and November.
Okay.
It's the season of wildflowers with a dazzling array of colors bursting across the landscape.
Mm.
For the Noongar people, Kambarang represents birth, new life, and the continuation of the cycle.
It's a breathtaking finale to the year, celebrating the beauty and resilience of nature.
Yeah,
These Noongar seasons are such a beautiful example of how indigenous cultures weave their understanding of nature into their cultural practices and beliefs.
I think so.
It's a reminder that our connection to the natural world can be so much deeper than simply marking dates on a calendar.
It's about observing, listening, and understanding the rhythms of the earth, recognizing the interconnectedness of all things, and it's something we can all learn from,
Yeah.
regardless of our cultural background.
So well said. And it brings us to another key point. Seasons aren't experienced uniformly across the globe.
Right.
Our sources highlighted the diverse ways seasons manifest in different parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
Our planet is a tapestry of diverse climates and ecosystems, each responding to these seasonal changes in its own unique way.
Exactly. So while we might be focused on temperature variations here,
Yeah.
other parts of the world might experience seasons quite differently.
For instance, people living in tropical regions experience seasons defined by the patterns of rainfall
Yes.
rather than by temperature.
Yeah.
They have a wet season characterized by heavy rainfall and humid conditions,
Right.
and a dry season, which is typically drier and often warmer.
Right. So instead of bundling up for winter, people in tropical regions might be preparing for monsoon rains or extended dry spells.
Yeah.
It's a whole different way of experiencing these cycles.
It really highlights how there's no one-size-fits-all definition of seasons.
Right.
They're as diverse as the landscapes and cultures that experience them.
Yeah.
Speaking of diversity, what about those extreme environments like the polar regions?
Oh, yeah.
How do seasons play out there?
Now, the polar regions experience seasons in the most dramatic way imaginable.
Okay.
They have periods of polar day during their summer
Uh-huh.
where the sun never sets, bathing the landscape in continuous daylight for weeks or even months.
Wow.
And then they have polar night during winter
Yeah.
where the sun never rises, plunging the region into extended darkness.
Wow, imagine living in a place where the sun either never sets or never rises.
I know.
That must have a profound impact on life in those regions.
It does.
It must influence everything from plant and animal behavior to human activities and cultural practices.
You're absolutely right, and it brings us back to a point we touched on earlier, the profound impact seasons have on human culture traditions and even our psychology.
It's like they provide a backdrop to the human experience shaping our moods, our celebrations, and even our sense of time passing.
Yes.
Can you give us some specific examples of how seasons have influenced human culture?
Consider harvest festivals, for instance.
Okay.
These celebrations are found in cultures around the world and are deeply rooted in the cycle of seasons.
Uh-huh.
They mark the time of year when crops are gathered and communities come together to give thanks for the bounty of the earth.
Yeah.
These festivals often involve rituals, feasting, music, and dancing, and they serve as a powerful reminder of our dependence on the natural world.
It's a time to acknowledge the hard work and patience that goes into producing food,
Right there.
and to celebrate the abundance that sustains it.
Yes.
And these harvest festivals often have a spiritual dimension as well, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Giving thanks to deities or spirits associated with agriculture and fertility, recognizing that our well-being is intertwined with the health of the land.
Exactly. And it's not just about food and sustenance.
Yeah.
Seasons have inspired countless works of art, music, and literature throughout history.
Oh, absolutely. When you say that, I immediately think of Vivaldi's Four Seasons, a masterpiece of classical music that captures the essence of each season through sound.
Oh, yeah.
The soaring melodies of spring evoke feelings of renewal and joy, while the dramatic chords of summer convey the heat and energy of the season. The melancholic strains of autumn reflect the beauty and sadness of falling leaves, and the stark, icy tones of winter evoke a sense of stillness and introspection.
It's a powerful example of how music can evoke the emotions and imagery we associate with each season.
It's amazing how music can transport us to another place in time, making us feel the chill of winter or the warmth of spring, even when we're indoors.
Yeah.
And what about literature? I bet there are countless examples of how writers have used seasons to enhance their storytelling.
Literature is full of rich examples.
Yeah.
Think of Shakespeare's plays, where seasons often play a symbolic role, mirroring the emotional states of the characters or foreshadowing events. In Romeo and Juliet, for instance, the oppressive heat of summer intensifies the passions and conflicts that lead to tragedy.
Yeah.
And in A Midsummer Night's Dream, the magical events unfold under the light of the summer solstice moon, suggesting a time when the boundaries between reality and fantasy blur.
It's like the seasons become characters themselves, adding depth and complexity to the narrative.
Right.
And it's not just in classic literature. Many modern novels and poems explore the cyclical nature of seasons as metaphors for human experiences like love, loss, growth, and renewal.
Right. Seasons can represent different stages of life, the passage of time, or the emotional ups and downs we all face.
Yeah.
They provide a powerful framework for exploring human nature and the challenges we navigate throughout our lives.
It's like seasons give us a language for understanding our own experiences, a way to connect our personal journeys to the rhythms of the natural world. But I'm also curious about how seasons might influence our psychology more directly.
Okay.
I've heard that things like mood and energy levels can fluctuate with the seasons.
Uh-huh.
So it's not just about feeling a bit down when it's gloomy outside.
Right.
There might be actual biological processes at play.
There's growing evidence suggesting that our mental and emotional well-being can be influenced by seasonal changes, particularly the amount of daylight we're exposed to.
Okay.
Reduced daylight hours during the winter months can disrupt our circadian rhythms, those natural cycles that regulate our sleep-wake patterns and hormone production.
So our bodies are still attuned to those ancient rhythms of nature, even in our modern, artificially lit world.
It seems that way, and this disruption of our circadian rhythms can lead to what's known as seasonal affective disorder,
Okay.
or SAD, characterized by feelings of sadness, fatigue, loss of motivation, and even changes in appetite and sleep patterns.
So those feelings of winter blues might actually have a physiological basis.
They might.
But if reduced daylight can have a negative impact, what about the opposite? Does increased daylight in the summer months have a positive effect on our mood?
There's evidence suggesting it does.
Right.
Increased exposure to sunlight boosts our serotonin levels,
Mm.
a neurotransmitter that plays a key role in regulating mood, sleep, and appetite.
Okay.
Higher serotonin levels are associated with feelings of happiness, well-being, and calmness. It's a fascinating interplay between our biology, our environment, and our cultural perceptions.
So those sunny summer days might actually be giving us a natural mood boost.
They could be.
It's no wonder so many people feel more energetic and optimistic during the summer months. But even beyond these physiological effects,
Yeah.
I think seasons have a psychological impact simply by marking the passage of time.
It's fascinating how seasons create a cyclical framework for our lives.
Yeah.
Providing a sense of structure, anticipation, and renewal, each season brings its own set of expectations, activities, and even fashion choices.
I know, right?
Think about the cozy sweaters and warm beverages of winter, the vibrant floral prints and outdoor picnics of spring, the bright colors and beach vacations of summer, and the warm hues and pumpkin spice everything of autumn.
Each season has its own sensory landscape, a unique set of cues that trigger memories, emotions, and even behaviors. It's like a built-in system for marking time and creating a sense of anticipation for what's to come.
Right.
And it's not just about the present moment.
Uh-huh.
Either seasons also connect us to the past and the future.
Yes.
Think about the nostalgic feelings that certain seasons can evoke. The scent of pine needles might transport you back to childhood Christmases. Or the smell of freshly cut grass might remind you of carefree summer days.
And in a way, seasons help us look forward to the future, too.
Yeah.
They create a sense of anticipation.
Okay.
We look forward to the first snowfall of winter, the blooming of flowers in spring, the warm days of summer, and the colorful foliage of autumn.
Yeah.
It's like they give us milestones to look forward to, breaking up the year into chapters, each with its own unique flavor and significance. I think this cyclical nature of seasons offers a sense of comfort and stability in a world that can often feel chaotic and unpredictable.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that even amidst change, there's a constant rhythm to life, a natural order that continues to unfold.
Uh-huh.
It's reassuring knowing that no matter what challenges we face, the seasons will continue to turn, bringing new opportunities for growth, renewal, and celebration.
I agree.
But as much as we focused on the positive aspects of seasons,
Yes.
it's important to acknowledge that they can also bring challenges.
That's a good point. The changing seasons can also bring extreme weather events, natural disasters, and even health challenges.
In some parts of the world, seasons are marked by intense heat waves, droughts, wildfires, or flooding.
Right.
These events can have devastating consequences for people, ecosystems, and infrastructure.
Uh-huh.
And even in more temperate regions, seasonal changes can trigger allergies, respiratory illnesses, and other health issues.
It's a reminder that while seasons are a source of beauty and wonder, yeah.
They also demand our respect and preparedness.
Hmm.
We need to be aware of the potential risks associated with each season and take steps to protect ourselves, our communities, and the environment.
So as we marvel at the beauty of changing leaves or the first snowfall, let's also remember to be mindful of the challenges that seasons can bring and take responsibility for mitigating those risks.
Absolutely.
It's part of living in harmony with the natural world, recognizing both its beauty and its power. It's a beautiful sentiment acknowledging both the wonder and the potential challenges that come with each season. And it leads us to a question that's been on my mind throughout this whole deep dive. How is climate change impacting this intricate dance of the seasons?
Mhm.
We've been hearing so much about shifting weather patterns, rising temperatures, and more extreme weather events. Is this affecting the timing and intensity of seasons? It's a crucial question, and unfortunately, the answer is yes. Climate change is having a noticeable impact on seasons around the world. We're seeing earlier springs in many regions, with plants blooming and birds migrating ahead of their traditional schedules.
So spring might be arriving earlier, but is it lasting as long, or are we seeing those warmer temperatures extending into what used to be a more temperate summer season?
That's the concern. We're also observing longer, hotter summers in many areas, leading to an increase in heat waves, droughts, and wildfires. And it's not just about warmer temperatures overall, it's about disrupting the delicate balance of the seasons, which can have cascading effects throughout ecosystems.
What about the other seasons? Are they being affected as well?
It seems so. Autumn appears to be arriving later in some regions, with leaves changing color and falling later than usual, and winters in some cases are becoming shorter and milder, with less snowfall and more unpredictable temperature swings. These shifts in seasonal timing can impact everything from the timing of plant and animal life cycles to the availability of water resources and the spread of diseases. It's a sobering reminder of how human activities are altering the natural world in profound ways.
It's definitely concerning, but amidst these worries, are there any positive developments or initiatives focused on addressing these climate-related impacts on seasons?
Absolutely. There are many efforts underway to mitigate climate change and adapt to its effects. Many countries are working to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, invest in renewable energy sources, and promote sustainable practices. And at the local level, communities are implementing strategies to adapt to changing seasons, such as planting drought-resistant crops, managing water resources more effectively, and preparing for more extreme weather events.
It's encouraging to know that people are taking action, but it's clear that we all need to do our part, both individually and collectively, to address these challenges and protect the delicate balance of seasons that sustains life on our planet.
I couldn't agree more. It's a responsibility we all share.
Well, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into seasons.
We have.
We've explored the science behind them, the cultural perspectives, the ecological impacts, and even the psychological effects. It's clear that there's so much more to seasons than just what month it is. They truly are a complex and multifaceted phenomenon worthy of our curiosity and attention.
And it's a story that continues to unfold, influenced by both natural forces and human actions.
So as you go about your day, take a moment to appreciate the beauty of the current season. Whether it's the vibrant blooms of spring, the warm sunshine of summer, the colorful foliage of autumn, or the quiet stillness of winter, each season is a reminder of the cyclical nature of time, the resilience of life, and the interconnectedness of all things. Thanks for joining us on Tell Me More.